So I managed to watch episode 1 and 2 of Loki very early, as I said in my community post. You should definitely check my community post if you need to see any new updates, and follow me on Twitter if you want to see any new updates of the channel. And I have my own little theory about this. So after I finish watching this theory, I'll get into what I think of the Loki series and my little theory. What's going on, my golden people? My name is Will and welcome back to PLC85 for everything new with gaming and funny reaction. Definitely, if you're new, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell because that's how you stay updated with everything PLC85. Now today we're going to be reacting to film theory, The Secret Villain of Loki is You. So no more talking, let's see what Matt's theory is all about.
The following episode contains spoilers for the first 2 episodes of Loki.
Okay. Let's see what you got, Matt. Let's see what you got.
Me, I presume? Please. If anyone is anyone, then I am you. I have an offer. That's why I found you. Let's hear it. I'm gonna overthrow the algorithm. And cards on the table, I could use a good lieutenant. Yin? I don't know. Look, just show yourself. This cold open ain't getting any colder. Fine. But be warned, the truth isn't always what you expect. Huh.
Yeah.
So that's the big twist, huh?
Yep.
Okay, should we just hop into the theory then? Oh, sorry, it was a slip of the tongue.
I think that would be for the best.
Alright, my theory is gonna come right after Matt, because I have a theory myself. Let's see what he comes up with though. Let's see what him and his team
Internet.
came up with.
Welcome to Film Theory, where I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so we can magically appear in your sacred timeline of YouTube videos. Speaking of blown up timelines, holy cow, does Marvel Studios know how to use their chaos magic to turn Wednesdays on social media into one big Nexus event. The first episode of the new Disney Plus series Loki set record numbers, and considering the reveals that happened last night, the social posts aren't slowing down anytime soon. I mean, just as it looked like episode 2 was settling into a comfy episodic groove, kablooey! Another huge bombshell as it's revealed that the variant Loki our Loki is chasing on behalf of the TVA is a woman. Female Loki. Oh, and she also set off a bomb that maybe blew up reality as we know it and may have just recreated the multiverse. And here you thought the gender reveals that started forest fires were bad. Anyway, we've still got 4 episodes left to go in this thing. Who or what else could we be seeing next? Kid Loki? Lucky Charms Loki? Colonel Sanders Loki? Okay, I made that last one up, but admit it, you wouldn't be surprised. I see you, Colonel Sanders. I see you. White-clad, finger-licking good Lokis aside, this is a show where literally anything is possible. I mean, the central conceit is all about time travel, alternate timelines, weapons that rewind and fast forward individual people, grenades that can blow up entire realities, multiple characters that can cast illusions, duplicate themselves, and use mind control, even a cosmic bureaucracy seemingly so powerful that they can vaporize demigods and use infinity stones as paperweights.
We actually got a lot of those.
I mean, not only is everything on the table, but like everything is on the table. That's why it's good I'm not here today to try and predict what's gonna happen in the show. Instead, I'm here to predict what the show is about. Yes, those are 2 very separate, very distinct things, though admittedly I might also throw in some what's gonna happen stuff in here too. No, what I'm really interested in today is the meta text, the stuff that's happening around the margins of this story, because 2 episodes in, I'm getting a strong sense of where this is all headed and what the goal of this show really is. And if I'm right, well then, I think I know who the real bad guy of Loki is. It's you. So let's unpack this.
Behold, my stuff.
What we're doing today is a type of literary criticism called new historicism. Literary criticism is basically a fancy word for interpreting a work of art and supporting your analysis with evidence. Basically a slightly more sophisticated version of writing a 5-paragraph essay for your English class. And there are lots of different ways to do it. You can look at the historical context around a work. You can look at the author and their beliefs. You can ask whether the author is a socialist or a feminist or has an unconscious oral fixation that's coming out through their work. Or you could just ignore all of that stuff and just read the darn book or watch the darn movie and analyze that. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere near that
Reading
deep.
the book
New
is a lot better than
historicism
watching
criticism
the
looks
movie.
at the work in its historical context under the belief that, hey, this book or movie isn't just a product of an author, but the product of a moment in history. If you really want to understand what its intention is, you have to also understand the historical context into which it was published. And so that is what we're about to do with Loki to understand why beneath everything else, this is a show about us and our relationship with the current state of Marvel. So let's start at the very top and work our way down, shall we? Starting with what we explicitly see take
Alright, let's
place
see
on
what you got.
screen.
Let's see what you
Loki,
got.
the series, follows, shock of all shocks, Loki. Not the same one that we know from the first 14 years of MCU movies. He's still dead, most likely. Instead, this Loki is the one from Endgame who grabbed the Tesseract and escaped into a portal when the Avengers kind of bungled their time heist, thus creating an alternate timeline. Except, what no one expected was that the new timelines don't get to split off for very long. Apparently, there's a way overpowered cosmic police agency called the Time Variance Authority that monitor things like when a stray Loki goes rogue and immediately swoop in to collect them, drag them off to TVA HQ for processing, and set off suspicious-looking grenades that appear to delete incorrect timelines from existing. And yup, if you'd been waiting however long for one of these things to answer whether or not a Marvel Cinematic Multiverse exists, Loki has your answer: no. The TVA makes sure that it can't, but a multiverse used to exist. See, apparently there did used to be a whole mess of different universes, but that was a bad thing because
Yes.
all the different realities kept fighting with each
They
other.
explained that
Long
already.
ago,
Yes.
there was a vast multiversal war.
They
Which
did
you
explain this in
know
episode
is going to
one.
be the premise of a
Immediately.
movie one day. You know it's coming, and you also
Multiverse
know
of
that you
Madness.
want it. I mean, like,
Come on.
I and everyone else watching this scene on premiere night immediately demanded it from our mouse-eared overlords. Anyway, moving on. Supposedly, the
Facts.
multiverse problem was solved by a trio of omnipotent cosmic beings called the Timekeepers,
AKA
blasting the
the
whole
lizards.
shebang into a single reality called the Sacred Timeline. A single beginning-to-end straight line telling one true version of the story. And the TVA's role is to make sure that the past, present, and future all still happen the way they're supposed to by preventing variants like the escaped Loki from creating Nexus events, which spin off into alternate timelines. Now, why does that word sound so familiar?
Nexus. Because the world doesn't revolve around you.
Oh,
But
that's
instead
right.
of erasing our variant Loki from existence
forgot about
entirely,
that.
TVA agent Mobius wants to put him to work catching a rogue Loki that's causing all sorts of problems. So that's what's happening on the surface, but now let's go one layer deeper into the themes of the show. The themes, based on this initial premise, are pretty darn clear. Identity, freedom versus determinism, and the possibility of redemption. I mean, the whole plot is Loki literally on a quest to find Loki. Doesn't get any more explicit than that. And then, not only is he tasked with finding himself, but he also has to learn who he himself is in a sea of himself, and in a world where his decisions are predetermined. As the first episode says,
You ridiculous bureaucrats will not dictate how my story ends.
It's not your story, Mr. Laufeyson. It never was.
and again, with Lady Loki.
This isn't about you.
And that, my friends, is our big question. In a world where everything is predetermined by a sacred timeline, what does it mean to be free? Go figure, the god of mischief is on the side of upsetting the apple cart and not being told what to do,
True.
whereas the TVA believes that the sacred timeline has to be upheld no matter what, which leads to probably the easiest prediction theory that I've ever had to make on the channel. The Time Variance Authority are not the good guys in the story. What? No, that is shocking. Go figure. The regime of time-space middle managers
I
are
can't
bad,
wait to
despite
give
them
you my
saying that
theory
they're
at the
good.
end of
Who
this.
would have thunk it? It's
So
not like
far,
there were any
he's on-
signs along
he's
the
on
way,
par.
like say they're Minutemen field agents dressed like heavily armored riot cops. Their processing centers deliberately evoking the beige, fluorescent-lit, dehumanizing mazes of a DMV or a small claims court, and their entire overall aesthetic evoking a mix of mid-century American meets early Soviet bureaucracy. Not too hard to read this writing on the wall. But what's even more concerning is their philosophy, especially in the MCU, where individuality, free will, and the idea that we are not bound to our fate are like the core moral components to almost every major hero. Just look at
True.
Gamora, Nebula, Bucky Barnes. Heck, even the original Loki changed his ways to fight against Hela and Thanos. But that's not
true.
how the TVA sees it. Instead, Mobius informs Loki that his evil nature was always the plan in the sacred timeline, right up until it wasn't. That his only real purpose was to be a bad guy for the good guys to become good guys by defeating him.
You weren't born to be king, Loki. You were born to cause pain and suffering and death. That's how it is. That's how it was. That's how it will be. All so that others can achieve their best versions of themselves.
But here's the kicker, they don't really have an explanation for why things have to be how they are. We're told the multiverse was bad to begin with, but, well, we don't actually know if that's true. We're supposed to take them at their word, even though the timekeepers stay out of sight, and apparently only directly communicate with judges. The timeline is sacred because the timekeepers say it is, period. Just take it on faith. The whole thing sounds an awful lot like a religion, with omnipotent godlike beings communicating their will through a chosen few that you just gotta believe. believe. Heck, in episode 2, when Loki finally asks what the end of the whole big story is, Mobius says that they don't know. They're waiting for the timekeepers to untangle it and fill him in.
How does it all end?
That's a work in progress.
Oh, lady timekeepers, what are they waiting for?
Au contraire. No, because while we protect what came before, they're toiling away in their chamber, untangling the epilogue from its infinite branches.
I see. So, when they're finished, what happens then?
So are we.
In other words, the TVA doesn't even know what they're fighting, dying, and running cosmic black ops for. Forget religion, that's called a cult. And if they're truly the bad guys, well, remember that judge that sentences Loki? Her name is Ravonna Renslayer. In the comics, this name belongs to a princess, consort, and on-again, off-again romantic interest to Kang the Conqueror, one of the most feared and powerful Marvel villains ever. And wouldn't you know it, he just so happens to be a villain from the future obsessed with reordering the timeline to ensure his victories, using time travel, reality hopping, and illusions to get exactly what he wants. Sounds an awful lot like the timekeepers supervising the TVA, doesn't it? And I learned from my mistakes watching Wondervision. If it looks like an Agatha Harkness and wears a brooch like an Agatha Harkness, then chances are it's an Agatha Harkness. So big bad time travel guy with a close hench person named Ravonna in every episode lingering on that final face in the center of the courtroom? Just saying, there's a chance that all these stories are connected. It also helps that the actor Jonathan Majors is believed to be playing Kang the Conqueror in the upcoming Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, so we know that there's a high likelihood that this guy's gonna show up in the relatively near future. But now it's time to get into layer 3 of our analysis, why we're the villains of this whole thing, the meta-narrative. Think about what role the timekeepers play in the meta-narrative of Loki's story so far. Omnipotent beings who are aware of everything that's ever happened or will ever happen, and who have the ability to send ultra-powerful agents to any place in the universe at any point in time, but instead of rescuing people from danger or stopping disasters or even trying to make anything better, they're exclusively concerned with making sure that the events on a timeline that they decided was the right version, the sacred version no less, continues to happen in the way that they already know them to have happened. Despite all their titles, these guys aren't keeping time, they're keeping continuity. Those stuffy bureaucrats and jackbooted thugs with batons going around literally beating up variants and blowing up mistakes, that's meant to be us. That Marvel meta-narrative is pointing back at fans who might be getting ready to ruin everyone's fun because the timeline isn't perfect. The Darkhold from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't look exactly like the Darkhold from WandaVision. And in case you think, that seems to be a little on the nose for the moral of the series, remember, Captain Marvel ended with every guy who complained about the concept of Carol Danvers being overpowered gets ragdolled across the desert.
Prove to me you can beat me without...
Meanwhile, it's pretty clear based on how the series is turning out in the upcoming slate of films that Loki is either going to end with fracturing the sacred timeline or is setting the table for that to happen early on in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. The worst kept secret in Hollywood is that Marvel's next big trick is probably that a cinematic universe is about to become a cinematic multiverse. The Sony-Marvel partnership is doing another animated Spider-Verse movie. Pretty much everyone already knows that Spider-Man No Way Home is some kind of multiverse movie as well. There's references to both the MCU and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies in the trailers of both Venom 2 and Morbius, and they're about to launch an animated anthology series entirely about alternate reality storylines. Whatever they ultimately decide a multiverse means in this context, the Marvel multiverse is coming, probably pretty soon. It's a good way to manage the expanding roster of properties. It lets you revisit characters you've otherwise retired. You can try out ideas that might not be ready for the mainstream, as well as keep characters who might not play well with everyone else, like Deadpool, Blade, and Punisher, safely in their own spaces. You could use it as a hand wave to pull in established characters you've acquired from elsewhere but keep them in their more famous forms, all while fixing inconsistencies. But the thing about a multiverse is, just like Miss Minute says in episode 1, they're messy, they're chaotic, things get jumbled up. So do you kowtow to the timekeepers and limit yourself to a strict deterministic series of events like the TVA, blindly following a path towards some unknown ends, or do you side with Loki and loosen up a bit and allow for a little bit of chaos? Because guess what? Chaos can be kind of fun. Well, if I'm right about this, and I'm feeling good about it so far, then the Loki series is Marvel telling us their decision. A little bit of mess is worth it in the long run because it lets them do more fun stuff. When it comes down to a choice between avoiding a continuity error or doing something awesome, they are going to try to do something awesome. Does time travel mean that suddenly Steve Rogers stayed oddly silent throughout national tragedies like the Vietnam War? How did Doctor Strange get everyone organized for the big final portal portal charge. Shouldn't he have intervened at some point throughout the entirety of WandaVision? Mistakes like that are gonna happen, but isn't it worth it just to hear Falcon's voice over Cap's earpiece?
On your left.
So whatever else Loki ends up having to reveal about the future, past, or in between of the MCU, the real statement Lady Loki was making when she bombed the sacred timeline was all about the series' meta-narrative. Not just putting the timekeepers on notice for whatever their canonical agenda is, but telling us to brace ourselves for the messy, the chaotic, but the much more interesting and narratively fulfilling multiverse to come. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Almost, because I'm going to be derailing the timeline of this episode on behalf of our sponsor, Displate. Displate loves fans
cut
and
the video there,
fandoms.
but
They were good enough to hop aboard this episode to support
dealt
us.
with Displate before, and definitely, guys, check it out. Check out Displate. Trust me, go back. I'm sure he's going to have a link for that. Check out Displate. You definitely won't regret it if you're into art. Now, as I said before, I've seen episode 1 and 2 a bit earlier, and I actually spoken to a few different people who's big fans of the whole Marvel series and comic books and whatnot. And let me just give you how I feel, how they're gonna treat Loki. So, from what I've seen, it looks like they're gonna take the mystery of WandaVision with the action and storytelling, the buddy system of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then mash it up with some comedy, and then that's your Loki. That's what they're going for with this. Obviously, I think Matt basically said what I was going to say too with Kang the Conqueror, the multiverse. Obviously, I think a lot of people figured it out, but this Loki is going to be the best of the three. 100% positively the best. Also the WandaVision and Falcon the Winter Soldier, that's why it's getting so much hype, that's why it's getting so much noise, and I cannot wait to see episode 3 throughout. And anything new that I figure that's worthy, I will either put in a community post. Once again, check out my community posts, follow me on Twitter, and that's where I do all my updates. We actually did a film theory about The Lion King that definitely you should watch. And if you still want to see more reaction videos, definitely check out the rest of my reaction videos, or just hit this button to subscribe. As always, my name is Will, guys. And don't forget, where there's a will, there's a way. Stay golden, my friends, and thank you for watching.